Okay, so you have the doubt in nested if statements, right? Nested ifs. Okay. Alright, so I'll create another file and explain you from the beginning. Okay. So nested ifs are like an if under an if, you know. So there is a condition. If is meant to evaluate an expression to true or false. So it finds out a condition is whether true or false, and if you have two such checks, you know, right after one after another, then it is called nested ifs. Okay. Now, for example, yesterday I took this example where a number was matched. For example, you have to check, okay, there are students who score some numbers, right? They score some marks in exam, and you have to write for them whether they are passing in distinction or in first class, second class, etc. Okay, so there is some condition evaluation that you need to do. So I will just give the logic here. The logic is, if the score is greater than 90, it's a distinction. If it is between 90 and say 60 or say 70, so it is just a hypothetical score that I'm writing. Okay, I'm just giving you an example here. It's first class and below 70, and I mean between 70 and say 50, it is second, and then below 50 it is detained. Okay, not clear, right? If such is the logic that we have to implement, this is a real life example that you can relate to, right? If you're making a result, a program that will evaluate and write down, you know, print statement, where do you lie in your in your class here. So we have to implement this example in code. Right, now how will we do? So we have a variable called score and we give it some value, say 78. Right, now if score is greater than 90, print you have passed in distinction. Correct. Similarly, we can have multiple if statements. If score is less than 90, right? If it is greater than 90, if it is else, it will come, you can either write this statement directly or you can say else, it will be the same, right? If score is not greater than 90, it by default means that it is less than 90, and if it is less than 90, then you have another condition to now clear, no? So this condition you have implemented, and it is now less than 90, but if it is greater than 70 or not, right? So you will write here if score greater than 70. Okay, let me take out the extra spaces. You understand how the logic is forming? If score greater than 70, then you have to print some statement. You've passed in first class. So over here there are two statements anyways being tested for. One is this, and this is also a statement, which means this else is equivalent to testing this if score is less than 90, right? If this is score greater than 90, else would mean score less than 90. So instead of writing this if, I'm writing else. Then within this else, I am checking for some more conditions. If score is greater than 70, right? And then there is an else. Now this else would mean the same way, if score is less than 70. So if it is less than 70, you have to again test whether it is greater than 50 or not, right? Are you getting the logic? If score is greater than 50, if it is so, then you will print some statement. Okay, and if it is not greater than 50, which means it is less than 50, automatically we have reached this state. Please note how these blocks are being formed. So this is like from this place, this is the paired else here, under which this is the paired else, under which this is the, so mind the indentation, and you also see these lines being formed, these dotted lines, to tell you that you have to start from here. Okay, so you can say sorry, you have to try again. Okay, so now it looks like a valid logical program based on this logic that you see here. This is a pseudo logic, and I have now converted it into this statements Python code here, right? Now I will execute this program first. So the score is 78, right? So it says you have passed in first class, but it should, yeah, it's not greater than 90, you have passed in first class. Suppose I change the code here, I make it 92. Okay, so I'll have to test my code, changing this code to some value, and test the code that it goes in all flows and everything is running fine. So this is basically called unit testing. You have written something and you're running your code with different values to test your own code, right? So it says you have passed in distinction. Now suppose I make it 10. So with different values I'm trying my code. Sorry, you have to try again. So you have to try again, and I make it say 65, right? Second class. And if I make it less than 50, 45, right? So we have started from above and we've gone down below to implement the logic. We can also implement the same logic going the other way, like we can start from bottom up. This is a top down approach, from top score to bottom score we came, and you can do the same implementation even the other way around. So you'll say if score is greater than less than 50, okay, so instead of using else, I will show you how we can have multiple if statements, but these are not nested, right? Nested would have been possible here, but these are not nested individually. How I can test it? So if score is less than 50, do this. If score is greater than 50, and so there is a condition there is an operator that we can use, which is this, and score is less than 70, right? So between 70 and 50, this is the way I'm checking. Okay, if score is greater than 50 and score is less than 70, so this is like one condition. It will evaluate this first, and then it will also check for the trueness of this condition. If both are true, only then it will go and execute the statement under it. So you have to note this AND operator here. This is AND operator, which will check for, which will be true if both conditions are true. Okay, if both are true, then it will return true, right? So if such is the case, then you have passed in. So see, there are a lot of ways you can implement the logic. There's not just one way. You can implement your logic in multiple different ways, right? So this condition is taken care of. Now you have to see this condition. Similarly, you will just copy this and change the numbers. If score is greater than 70 but less than 90, if you fall in this bracket, then you are in. You have to print this out. And later, if score is greater than 90, then you have to print this, right? But these are all different. I mean, this is not like one block. This is one block, this is one block. They're all independent if conditions we are checking. However, this was in the nested condition. So you go in one, you check this condition. If it is not true, then you go into another condition checking. If not true, go into another, like that, right? And if you step out if the condition is true, like just by printing this, then you step out. So this is like a nested if else loop, and this is an independent if loop. So each time the result is going to be the same, right? So if I have the score 45, so it prints you have passed in first class. Sorry, somewhere, okay, you have to try again, but it also comes in you have to pass in first class, because you have to make sure that you give the equal statements also. So if it is less than 50 or greater than 50, there is one number that is missing that is equal to 50, so you have to also take care of that condition here. So you can either say score greater or equal, and here score greater or equal, right? A number can be less than, equal, and greater than. So you have to take care of all those conditions here, even here above. So if it is equal, then you have to make sure you say this equal. Equality also has to be handled, right? Now I'm going to comment out this block and test for this. If the score is 45 and if score is less than 50, what does it print? But it also goes, when it is 45, it comes and evaluates this statement. It prints sorry, you have to try again. And then it goes again somewhere. I think there's some mistake somewhere, that it goes in some other statement as well. You have passed in second class, you have passed in first class. So there is a bug, right? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No. For if it is greater than 90, only less than, yes. So it is coming in this condition, right? So we'll have to make it, we will have to use it like in the if statement, in nested if, right? So what we'll do is we will put it like this: if greater than 70, less than, yeah, after each if, but then this will, these are two conditions, no? So these are two conditions can be given as nested condition. Yeah, yeah, then it will become nested, no? To, that's what I'm saying. So let's change it to nested. So it's basically breaking here. If the score is greater than 70, so what we are checking for, we are checking for first class where the score is greater than 70 but less than 90. I did I give the right statement? Yeah, less than. So if it is greater than 70, and then another condition, you know, only if this is true then you go and check the next condition. So if score is less than 90, right? So this becomes an nested statement, nested if statement. Get it? Okay, so now it will not enter here. Similarly, we'll have to change this also. So this is a practical example where you're using nested if statements to check two conditions, because there are two conditions to check here, right? So you're checking two conditions one after another. So here again you'll say if score is greater than, sorry, where am I going? If score is greater than equal to 50, and under which you have to check if score is less than 70. So you're being very specific with your conditions here, right? Then you will print this statement. And here there's an indentation problem, so this gives you a warning here: bad indentation 7 spaces. So you basically have to make sure that these are on the same spacing, right? Okay, now if I change the value to say 80 or some 67, let's check. So these are all border conditions. 90, so 90 it is not giving anything. So let's see where we have not handled it. We have not set greater than or equal, so we have to make it equal here, right? You see, you saw that 90 it did not display anything. So basically you have to make sure you test for every condition. Now whenever you're testing for a number, the condition can be, I mean, you can check for the condition for it to be greater than, less than, or equal. So all of these three conditions have to be incorporated in your code somewhere, right? So the same logic we have implemented in different manner. Is the nested if statement clear now with example? Okay, fine. So let's begin with the next construct, that is looping. Okay, so loops are required when we want to execute a statement a number of times. Okay, let me give you an example. Let me show you why we need loops. Okay, suppose I want to print roll number of each student. Okay, so I have to go through an entire list of students and I have to print the name and roll number of each of them. Okay, so there can be n number of students in the class, and I have to, if I have to do it manually, I'll do this: print I am roll 1, name X. So based on the logic I'm going, right? So next, roll 2, name Y. Roll 3, name Z, and so on. Now if it is only about 3 statements, or say some statements that can visually see on the screen, say 7, 5, 10, whatever, it makes sense. But if you do not know the number, the higher number, the upper end number of students in a class, and you have to print one particular attribute again and again, say 100 times, 1000 times, then it is not a good idea to use this statement again and again. So basically you see a redundancy. The statement is doing the same thing, it's only that this variable and this variable is changing. The next statement, just this part, rest everything remains the same. If you have a situation like this, in that case we will loop. Now as the word says loop, you basically looping over a list or a set of values, but you're doing the same action for them. So the action here is printing. You are printing for each of those values something which is variable, right? But the action of printing remains the same. So let's see what we can do in that. Now a simple loop, there are two kinds of loop in Python. One is for and other is while. Okay, so let's begin with while loop first, and then we'll come to for loop. The syntax for while loop is, you say while, and just as you write while, you see that the color code changes to blue, which is for the keyword, for a reserved word. While, and then you have to give a condition, right? Just as we gave condition for if, similarly we have to give condition for while. If the condition is true, it will be evaluated just as it was evaluated for if condition. It will be evaluated. If the condition becomes true, it will enter into the statement that we write here, right? Until the statement is true, it will continue to loop. Only when the statement is false, it will step out, it will break from the loop. Okay, so now let's see the implementation with a simple example here. Okay, so let's build a scenario where we want to print, I have this counter, say I have this counter and it has a value, say 20. So which means I want to print 20 times a certain statement, right? This is what we mean by loop. Now if you take it, if you translate it into a real-time example, you have 20 students in your class and you want to print the roll number for each student, right? So how will this happen? I will say while counter is, so basically I will say this is the student's number, number of students 20, and I will use a counter to count the number of students. So I'll say counter is less than number of students, and counter is set to 0, right? So counter is one variable that has the value 0, and number of student is the variable that carries the number of students. Okay, and I check for this condition here, while counter is less than number of students. So counter is 0, it is less than number of students. I'll print the value of counter. Okay, so what will happen now? It will come, evaluate this condition, it will see 0 is less than 20, it will go and count, print the roll number is 0, or maybe I can start with 1. So 1 is less than 20, the roll number is 1. Then again it will go back, it will check the counter is still 1, is less than 20, yes, 1. So the counter value is not changing anywhere, and it will continue to check for this condition where 1 is less than 20 infinitely. Okay, it will never stop. But what we need to do is we need to change the value of counter here. So I have increased the value of counter. Say counter, the new counter is counter plus 1, right? So what it does is, each time this condition is evaluated, a roll number is printed, this counter is increased by 1. That is how at one point in time you will see that it will reach 20 and it will break out of the loop. Okay, so let's see that. Now let's see the execution of it. I want to show you the execution step by step, for which I am going to use another feature of the IDE, that is debugging. Okay, which is a very important feature. When you are practicing your if conditions and your loops, you'll find it very important feature, coming very handy to actually see the values of each of these variables, right? Let's see that. Now there is something known as breakpoint. What it means is, you can put a breakpoint by double clicking here on this gray strip that you see, which runs on the left of the numbers, the line numbers. You just double click and you will see this green drop coming, which is nothing but a breakpoint. Now what does this breakpoint do? It is going to stop the execution here. Okay, it is going to pause here the execution and wait for you to move to the next step, right? So let's begin. I'm going to right click here, just as I run the program by right clicking and doing run as Python run. Now I'm going to use this debug as Python run. Okay, so let's see what happens. So it comes to, it basically asks you whether you want debug perspective to be displayed or not. Okay, so yes, we switch to debugging perspective. So when you come to debugging perspective, you will see on the right side this screen wherein you have 3 tabs: variables, breakpoints, and expressions. The variables will list the variables that you already have in your code. So in this program I have 2 variables: number of students, counter, and you see number of students, the value is here integer 20, counter 1. All of these other things that you see, these are inbuilt variables to the program, which we are not going to bother about right now. Okay, so we will see number of students and counter here. The execution is stopped here, it is not going forward because we had put a breakpoint, and here you can see a green strip that covers, that highlights the code that it is pausing at, right? So we will wait here. Sorry, the execution is not going forward, it is waiting here. We want to move to the next step. What you can do is, you can do it by 2 ways. You can either put another breakpoint here, just as your program is in between the run, also you can put breakpoint here. I put the breakpoint here, and when I want to move it, when I want to run it again, this is the control from where you continue the execution, and execution will stop again on the next breakpoint. So I have the breakpoint on the next statement. As I resume it, it will go to the next statement, right? So here it is going to print the roll number is counter. So since I already have these three statements, these are already there, you see, right? But now I'm going to watch what happens here. So I'm going to resume again. It will wait on the next breakpoint, right? So it says roll number is 1 because the counter value is 1. Now as the control is on this statement, and this is basically incrementing the counter. You are increasing the counter by 1 by adding 1 to it. The new counter value will be an addition of 1 to this value, the older counter. So as I execute it, the control goes back to while, right? Because it's a loop, so it will go back to while, and the value of counter is now 2. And again this will equate. You can also put a watch on any expression. Now this is an expression that it evaluates to either true or false, right? So I can just right click, I can select this expression, right click and say watch. You have this expressions tab here on top, and you put this expression here, and you see this expression is evaluated here to be true. So you can watch step by step like how this loop is behaving. Okay, so basically when you have to understand loops, it's a very good tool. This debugging function is a very good tool to understand the behavior of loops, right? So I go again. This time it becomes true because counter is 2, which is less than 20. So 10 times it is going to print, right? So I'm just going to show you the output here. Roll number 1, 2, 3 has been printed, and the counter is going up. Just keep watching the variable section on the right. Counter is 4, now counter becomes 5, and so on. It will go on up till 20. I'll wait at 19 and then we'll evaluate like when it breaks. Okay, so now the counter is almost reaching 19. On this step it will become 19, and 19 is less than number of students, so it will again go into this, and now it becomes 20. This statement that we have already put an expression, if you go back it becomes false now, right? And as I said before, while will continue to execute the statements under itself until the condition is true. Now when the condition becomes false, it is going to step out. It will, this time when I resume, it is not going to go in this print statement. Okay, let's see that. Okay, so it terminated the program, right? So this way you can use this debugging feature to basically see what happens where the control flow goes. Over here also, when we were doing this nested if, we could have used the debugging feature to see what is happening. You can evaluate, you can put a condition, right? Select it and put a condition, right click and so on. Okay, that's the capacity that you can use, the feature of the program. Now there's another way. Over here you're using breakpoints. On each statement you have put breakpoints. How else can you step over on each step, right? That is something that I want to show you now. So the same thing I'm going to do as run debug as Python run. The control comes and stops here. I don't have a breakpoint on the further lines down there. So what I need to do is I have to step over. I want to step over to this print statement. And how you can do that is, you see the step into step over. Okay, I'll use F6. When I use F6, automatically it goes to the next statement. It is stepping over, which means that each step that follows, it is going to stop on each of that step. Okay, so now the condition is true, you see in expression, and variables 21, and with F6 I'm continuing to step over within this while loop step by step, right? So you see what's happening. It prints, it evaluates, prints, increments the counter, evaluates, prints, and so on. Okay, all right. So when it becomes 19, it will break. It terminates the program here. So far so good. Is it clear, or do we need to go over some more examples to make it clear? Yeah. Under watch? Okay, sure. So while you are executing the program, while you are debugging the program, say I will right click, debug as, and I do Python run. Okay. Now whichever expression you want to evaluate, you will select it. So I'm going to select this particular expression and right click on it and say watch. Under this expression is coming. You can also change the width to see it properly. Not just that, I can also write any expression here. For example, if I want to see 3 greater than 7, so it is going to evaluate it, right? So this is like an on the fly, where you can have your expression, or you can say counter plus number of students. So anything you can write here, and you can have how the program will evaluate it. The same evaluation, you can view it here while the program is running. This is during the program. As soon as you terminate it, after that, you see these values are not being shown, like the correct evaluation of the values. It says error during evaluation because the program has ended. It is working only while the program is running, like it's underway. Okay, but you can put these expressions under watch even when the program is not running, but the values will appear only when the program is running, right? So this is about while loop. Okay, so basically for iteration, for iterating over some values till a condition becomes false, we use while. Okay, so it will execute the statements under itself until the condition is true. That's the use of while. So just as if the condition is true, it will go into the block and execute it. We have the same thing in if statement also. If the condition is true, it will go into the block and execute it. But in if, we have else statement also. If the condition is false, then we have an else statement also, right? You remember from here. Similarly, for while also, we may have an else statement after it. So when the condition becomes false, and the block under else statement will be executed. So how I will do it? Like when it becomes false, which means when counter becomes equal or greater than 20, then I can print some statement. So there is an else also available to a while condition. So I can say So roll number above highest strength of the class. Okay, this is just any message I'm printing to show you how it works. So now I'm going to remove this breakpoint and run. So you see how fast the execution goes. I'm going to remove these lines also. Run as Python run. Very quickly it prints until 19 and roll it goes into else, right? You can run just a while without else also, so you might not need this piece of code, you might not want to have else in place, right? So that's also possible. It prints until 19. I want to draw your attention to a situation, because there can be a situation where you forget to change the condition, and hence the condition under while loop is always true. What will happen in that case? Logically you can think it's an infinite, it will become an infinite loop, it will just continue to execute and execute, but what will happen? So let me demonstrate you that. If you comment this statement where you are incrementing the counter and the while loop is just this much, okay, you evaluating the statement and you printing. So let's see what happens. So just pay attention to the console area. So it is, see, roll number is 111 because the counter is not increasing, counter is set to 1, it is not incremented, it is just going to print that particular statement. But if you notice, it is going this fast and it has become an infinitely, never ending loop. It is just going to go. In Eclipse you have a way of terminating the program from here. This calls terminate, so you can terminate it by force, right? But the program itself was designed in such a manner that it would never terminate. Okay, it will terminate only when the memory runs out, otherwise it will never terminate. If you run the same program from the interpreter, say I open the interpreter, I say Python, and I run the program from interpreter, I just, so basically for interpreter, for writing on interpreter, I'm just hard coding the values. What I'll do is while 1, the value of this is 1, this is 20, and I print roll number is 1, just some for the purpose of demonstration, right? So I'll use this code and copy it here. Okay, so you whenever you stuck in this, you would basically use Control C to give a keyboard interruption, and that is exactly what I'm going to tell you right now, that whenever you end up in a loop, in an infinite loop on the console, how would you step out, how would you exit yourself from that infinite loop, is by typing Control C. So while, or you can also do true this print 1. So this is an infinite loop, and how you step out of it is by doing Control C, but it is not printing the value. Okay, I look at it offline, I'll see why this is not happening, but to bring your notice to this, that whenever you are in infinite loop, press Control C to step out of, forcefully from that infinite loop. In Eclipse you have this terminate that you could use, but in command prompt you will use Control C. Okay, so I'll comment this out. Alright, so with this we have the while loop in, we have covered while loop. Now there is another condition where we want to treat a special condition inside while loop. For example, okay, let me just show that example to you. So this is about the use of break statement. If it's getting too much, we can do it tomorrow. So if you think that it is enough for today, we can stop here. And if you think that we can have one more break statement covered so that you can practice, I'm okay with that too. So guys, you can make your choice. Stop here? Okay. All right. Yeah, yeah. It's very important to practice. You mean some exercises that you can practice? Sure. So I'm going to mail you after the class the exercises. So you read the statement and try to implement it. Sure, I will do it today. All right. I'll do it today. Okay. Can we stop here? All right. Thank you. Any questions, anyone? You can ask me. I still have time. Oh. Jennifer, all good? I can't hear you, but I assume if there's no answer, I assume it to be. She's on mute.